Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is simply called Discerning What is True here on YouTube. I'm going to be talking about continuing a book of what we call Kabbalah and Exodus, based upon Exodus chapter 28. The title of the book is simply, not the title of the book, the title of the chapter simply is Levels in Man, which is chapter 33. So let's get to that reading. So it's simply called Levels of Man, Exodus 28. And so we're going to try to read this thing here because it's got some interesting words here. There's a quote here called Visiyata Vedaya Kodesh. Quote, and thou shalt make holy garment, quote, end quote, for Aaron thy brother, la kabra ko teperel, end quote. And then another quote, for the glory and for the beauty, end quote. And thou shalt speak unto all the wise-hearted whom I have filled with the Ruah, R-U-A-H, Hakomhom, H-O-K-H-M-A-H, end quote, or simply called Spirit of Wisdom from Exodus chapter 28, verses 2 and 3. The text then goes on to set out the general scheme of the garments. These are a breastplate and ephod, a mantle and a checkered coat, a turban and a girdle. Later, a pair of breeches is added, making even 7 elements in all. This number in itself indicates the 7 levels of, or what we call stations of consciousness, but at this point we will limit ourselves to the 4 worlds. The ephod, or over raiment, is the first garment to be specified in detail. Sewn into a coat of linen are to be strains of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. So those represent the 4 elements there. The colors is what I'm guessing here. The gold signifies the divine spark in man. The blue thread, his spiritual vehicle. The purple, his psychological organisms. And the scarlet, the color of blood for the physical body. Well, I'm not right about that. It's not the elements there. This richly embroidered garment was held at the shoulders by 2 straps, while affixed to his front were breastplates of gold, inset with 12 precious stones. We talked about this briefly with Phil in the past, as we talked about this particular book here. And then this particular piece here of artwork. This richly embroidered was held at the shoulders by 2 sections. Okay, wow. Okay, 4 rows. So there were gold insets with 12 precious stones arranged in 4 rows of 3. This breastplate was held by 2 chains of gold to a pair of cornelian stones, one on each shoulder, set in 2 golden rosettes. The cornelians were engraved with the names of the sons of Israel, 6 on one side and 6 on the other. These matched the stones of the breastplate in that each stone was was related to one of the tribes. The lower part of the breastplate was secured by blue threads to the ephod. The original meaning, like the translation of the words ephod and hoshan, H-O-S-H-E-N, for the breastplate, has been lost with time. So there has been much speculation about the stones, their names, and arrangement. Some rabbis see the order of fraternal seniority as a progression from right to left, indicating a lightning flash light descent of divine principles, while others view the breastplate layout as the separate tree, with the additions of the 3 Zarabad. We'll just spell this for you, Z-A-H-Z-A-H-O-T, or hidden splendors of later Kabbalah that precede the Sephirah. The crown being simultaneously linked between the tree and the concealed roots of the pillars. Many rabbis saw the letters of the names of the tribes as making up the names, many names of God, in particular the Shem HaMephoresh, or the special name of the Lord. This title only the high priestess knew how to verbalize and alter before the people on the highest holy day of atonement, or it could be simply at one minute also. According to legend, the brightness of its stones was used for oracle purposes. Thus, when a important question had to be asked, it was addressed to the high priest in his full regatta. The breastplate, folklore relates, then responded by lightening up certain of the stones and letters of the alphabet. Thus, words would form into an answer. Whatever this method may have actually symbolized, the breastplate was considerably infallible, providing the high priest had sufficient purity of heart and intellectual clarity, that is, psychological balance and developed spirit. Behind the epaulette was the pouch of the Urim, U-R-I-M, and Thummim. What they actually were has been lost, although it is known that they were also used for oracle purposes. According to some, a question was asked, and depending on whether the Urim or Thummim was drawn out, the answer was determined is yes or nay. These methods of divination, I should say, were used when there was an important issue confronting the nation. Their operations was exclusively in the hands of the high priests, which guarded against a oracle of lower angelical or even demonic orders from taking precedence over the divine. The breastplate and the Urim and Thummim represents the lower part of the divine worlds. Later in the text, the upper part of emanation is symbolized by a turban and a plate made of pure gold with the words Kodosh, K-O-D-O-S-H, La Yahweh, or holy to Yahweh, engraved upon it. This holy name represents the crown of the tree of creation, which is at the center of the divine world. Thus, Aaron wears over his head and heart the symbols and instrument whereby the high priest may know the divine will. The coat of blue with its sky color not only represents the creative world, but the spiritual organisms within a human being. The pomegranate hung around its skirts were symbols of the potency, of creation, while the bells hung between them were to make a sound that could be heard outside the Holy of Holies. This music told those outside that the high priest was still living in the flesh as he moved into protecting darkness before the Shekinah, radiance, that is. And I want to look up this word. I'm going to see if it's in here. I don't know if it's going to be here or not. I'm going to check. No, it's not. I was wondering if it's in this particular book here. Check one other thing here. I'll check this particular book now. This is much larger. It's much more thorough here. I don't see it. I thought I might see it here, but I don't see it so far. No, I don't see it. I thought it might be in this book, but it's not. Okay. Just wanting to see what the meaning of it. I might ask Phil that question. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Before the Shekinah radiance that hovered over the ark. The significance of this for the individual is that the spirit is contained by the divine and underlies it, just as the heavenly throne is placed below the glory in Ezekiel's vision. The celestial color of the garment indicates the universal scale of the spiritual level where the body vanishes and the psyche is reduced to a dot. Only those who can function in the cosmic state of consciousness may approach and enter the Holy of Holies safely. The executive coat represents the psychological body, the squares indicating the interaction of opposites and the sequential combinations of attraction, repulsion, equilibrium experienced in the ever-changing situation of the psychological world of formation. The checks also reveal how the soul has to choose constantly between good and evil, as circumstances continually alters in fluctuation as heaven above undergoes the travail of creation and influence the worlds below. This garment worn below two upper coats is the longest and reaches to the ground. It is in contact with the physical body of the priest on its inner side and acts as an insulator from and connection with the blue coat, just as the psyche does between the body and the spirit. There's probably a touch of contact with ephod at its top to establish a divine connection, as indicated on Jacob's ladder. A sash made up of what we call the three sacred colors is wound round the waist, and so each coat is separated into a superior and inferior level, thus signifying with the various links of the coats the interleaving of the worlds and bodies. The breeches of linen worn to cover the genitals during the time in the holy place indicates a mystery of Yesod, the Sephirah of the foundation, which springs from the unmanifested Sephirah of knowledge, which is Da, at a higher level. The implied meaning of this is that nothing secret should be revealed to the inferior levels. The Hebrew name for foundation is Yesod, which is Y-E-S-O-D, which contains an interword Sod, S-O-D, which means secret. For the individual, the description of the vestments of the high priest is an account of his own composition, or levels of his being set out as they truly are. Divine is not only at his center, but encloses the spirit of cosmic aspects of himself, within which in turn his psyche resides and contains the nucleus of the physical body. This is the esoteric principle of, quote, as above, so below, at work in biblical terms. In the undeveloped, the three lower vehicles, that is, the chariots, as they are sometimes called, are in various stages of evaluation. The physical body is perhaps the most evolved in sophistication with the psychological organism in many people in a state of gestation or early development. The spiritual anatomy in most individuals is probably an amorphous cloud, but the divine part is like a swiftly woven ephod already perfected, or I should say already perfect. So that's the end of the chapter there. That's chapter 33. Again, that's from Exodus chapter 28. So we're gonna probably end this at this point. And this again is a very short chapter. Again, well, I've done part of it here. Actually, not short chapter. It's got many different features in this particular chapter of Exodus. Okay, we're going to stop here. I appreciate you being here. I've done about 4 installments tonight. So thank you for being here. Again, my channel is simply Discerning What Is True. And my name is Brant, B-R-A-N-T, Hunt. So thank you for being here, and I wish you a good day. Take care.